Hey all, how are you doing? Então, gente, sejam muito bem-vindos a mais um Hey All Podcast. E hoje a gente tem um convidado especial e eu já vou falar mais sobre ele, mas antes eu não poderia deixar de falar do nosso patrocinador, Seu Bredes Lanches, top demais. Quem comeu sabe que é bom, quem não comeu tem que comer porque o negócio é bom demais. E lembrando que agora a galera abre no horário do almoço, então você pode fazer o seu pedido agora, se você quiser, tá? Você pode acessar lá o Instagram, pode clicar nesse link que está aqui, ó, e você vai ser direcionado para essa página que você pode baixar o aplicativo para o iPhone ou para o seu Android, pode pedir pelo WhatsApp ou até pelo iFood, né? Ou entra aqui no cardápio digital que você consegue ver todos os lanches que a galera tem lá, ó. Então, né, a partir das 11 até as 2 da tarde aqui a galera tá vendendo. Então tá lá, ó. Tem os hot dogs, né? E eu sempre falo do meu favorito, que é o com carne moída, que é sensacional. Então, gente, aproveita, pede aí que o negócio é bom demais e agora também tem no horário do almoço. Baixa o aplicativo, 15% de desconto na primeira vez que você vai utilizar e entrega até 30 minutos, hein? Ó, tá dizendo ali. Entrega em 30 minutos. Top demais, o lanche chega bom demais, quentinho, sensacional. E é isso aí, agora a gente vai começar então o nosso podcast com o nosso convidado, Mark Thomas, straight from the United States. Então agora, gente, esse podcast vai ser exclusivo em inglês. A gente tem, né, feito quem está quem tá acompanhando tem visto que a gente faz alguns podcasts metade em português, metade em inglês, outros 100% em português, e esse vai ser o primeiro que a gente vai falar o 100% in English. Ok? Então é uma ótima oportunidade que você vai ter para poder aprender o seu inglês aí, desenvolver o seu inglês e aprimorar e praticar, e é isso aí. So, Mark Thomas, welcome.
Thank you, Carlos. Muito obrigado. Not all in English. I'll do
I
it.
see. Yeah, I have to say that Mark is studying some Portuguese, so maybe we can put him in a position that he needs to get out of his comfort zone and speak some Portuguese. It will be cool.
Sure. Well, thank you very much for having me.
Come on, man! It's a pleasure. I'm so happy. I really wanted to have you here, and I really wanted you to be my first American, guest to be here with me. And uh, like I told you before, the main idea here is to have friends and people who I like and I respect and I love talking and just share our conversation to the rest of the world, right? And this is the main idea. And man, I love talking to you, and it's really nice to have this moment. And I promise I'll try to keep in 40 minutes. I'm telling everybody, guys, it's just 40 minutes. It's just 40 minutes, and it's always like 1 hour and a half, 1 hour and 15. But this time, I'm talking to an American, not a Brazilian, so I need to keep in schedule. I'm trying to make this change and keep to 40 minutes. Okay.
Americans are very punctual, so
Yes, that's it. So I want to keep that, 40 minutes on. So, man, tell us a little bit about you. Like, who are you, Mark Thomas? Where are you from? What do you do? And that's it. Come on.
Yeah. So thanks, Carlos, again for having me. My name is Mark Thomas. I am 35 years old. I live in Indiana. I am from Indiana, which is a state in the United States. We would call it in the Midwest. It's kind of in the central part of the United States. Indiana is probably most famous internationally for the Indianapolis 500.
Yeah.
And I have a wife and two kids. My wife is Kendra, and her maiden name is Kendra Edwards. Kendra grew up in Brazil and left, I think, probably when she was about 18 to go to college in the United States. And then we met here and got married. And then we have two kids, Cecilia and Leo.
Nice.
And I have been to Brazil 4 times, I think. I have not been to Brazil for a couple of years now because of COVID and because of just flights and all that stuff. But we're hoping to get back very, very soon. So, I can go hang out with Carlos in person and not just, online. So,
Very cool.
I grew up here in Indiana. I work in the energy industry, so I'm kind of a consultant or
Mhm.
consultor de
Yeah,
energia or da energia, uh,
de energia.
de energia, and yeah, I kind of do that for my job. And I think what's kind of interesting about us is that in a couple of weeks we're going to actually move to another state in the United States, just one state north of here, and we're going to move to Michigan
Mhm,
for my wife's job. She is a professor, and she was able to get a really, really, really cool job, a great opportunity up at a small college in Michigan. So we're going to move
mhm,
there, and I will work remotely. So I will be more
mhm.
on my computer at my house and not so much in the office. So
Yeah, working from home, which is good, man. I've been working from home for quite some time, and I was a little concerned at first, like, okay, maybe I can, I don't know, not have the flow, to work.
mhm.
But man, it's amazing. It's amazing. I like that a lot. If I could, I think I would be working like not 100% of the time, but maybe like 90% of the time from
Yeah,
home. It's
yeah,
really cool. It's really cool.
yeah. I think
Um,
that I mean, COVID was really, really bad, but maybe a silver lining of COVID
mhm,
is that a lot of people were kind of forced to work from home and found out that they could do it. And that was kind of me
mhm,
too. Kendra and I both worked from home for about a year,
mhm.
and we both found out we could do it. So um, that was helpful in determining, how well I'll be working from home in the future. So I'm not too
Sure.
worried about it, which is good.
Sure, cool. And tell me one thing, like you said you're moving to Michigan, and
Mhm.
what city are you moving to?
So we're moving to Holland, Michigan.
Holland.
So Holland,
Yeah.
just like the country,
Mhm.
Hollanda,
Hollanda, Hollanda.
Hollanda.
Uh-huh.
So we are moving to Holland, Michigan, and it's called Holland because it actually has a very, very rich Dutch history. There were a lot of Dutch
Ah.
settlers that moved to Western Michigan,
Mhm.
and it's right next to Lake Michigan, which is, I think, the second biggest lake in the Great Lakes. It's a big kind of lake grouping up in North America. And so we'll be right on Lake Michigan, and
Mhm.
hopefully be able to, go to the beach and swim and not worry about
Sure.
sharks. So, happy about that. So,
Okay, no sharks there.
no, well, not that I know
Okay.
of. So,
Okay, so yeah, this is better. Okay, and what college is she going to teach
yeah,
now?
she's going to go to Hope College,
Hope College. It's
which
a
is a
Christian
small.
college, right?
It is. Yep, it's a small Christian college,
This
and
is cool.
we're gonna live really, really close to campus to the college, so
Mhm.
that we can really invest in the college with our time and our family. So,
Wow, this is so cool.
mhm.
So cool. Yeah, Hope. I think I told you that. Like I have a student from Colégio Londrinense, that her dad, I think he took his master degree or doctor degrees, I don't know. And they went to Hope. I think it's Hope College. I'm pretty sure it is,
Wow, that's
to
awesome.
get his certificate and etc. And she showed me some photos. It's beautiful, huh?
Yeah, yeah, it is. It
A
is
beautiful
beautiful.
place.
Yep,
Yeah.
campus is beautiful, and the town's pretty cool too. So we're looking forward to it.
Oh, amazing, amazing. All right, man. So getting back to you a little, and you told us that you grew up in Indiana, right?
Mhm.
And like Indiana is, I have always heard about like Indiana because the Americans that used to come to Londrina, a lot of them were from Indiana. So
Mhm.
uh like I've always heard about Indiana and Indiana Hoosiers and etc. And of course, we heard a lot about like Indy 500 and because they like the Indianapolis 500. So
Sure.
it's really cool. But like we don't know much. Like we don't see Indiana a lot on the movies and it's etc. So how is Indiana like? Like what's the
Oh man.
weather like and what's
Sure.
I know it's kind of a big state, so maybe it's different and like from town to town. But
Yeah,
I don't
sure.
know.
Yeah, I think a lot of Indianapolis, or most of Indianapolis, is farmland. So it is
Mm,
very, very rich agricultural. So
sure.
we have corn. We grow corn, medium.
Hmm.
In Indiana, we grow soybeans.
Mhm.
We grow, I think, a little bit of wheat from time to time, but mostly corn and soybeans.
And
Which,
this is something
yes,
I'm curious about because like it's a farm, like a lot of farms,
hmm,
but it also snows too, right? A lot.
for
It
sure,
gets too
yeah.
cold.
So,
So and how is that? Like growing corn and soy and snowing? Like I don't know.
well, I mean, so there's a season for growing, right? So you grow
Uh,
plants in the spring and summer. So, which would be
mm,
now. Now is summertime. So, if you drove out into the country, you would see fields
mhm,
of corn and soybeans growing.
mhm,
And then by fall, which I would say is kind of like September, October, November timeframe in Indiana, uh,
mhm.
the corn is taller than you. It's huge, but
Wow.
that's when they would harvest the corn. So before the
Sure.
snow comes, they would
Mhm.
harvest the corn and the soybeans.
Sure.
And then basically right before winter time, everything would be harvested. And we actually have, so Thanksgiving is a like a holiday where we basically kind of celebrate harvest in a way, where we eat
Mhm.
a lot of food that you would usually be harvesting in the fall time, if
I
that
got
makes
it.
sense. And then it
But what about
snows in
winter?
the winter time. Yeah.
And how do farmers like live, or what do they do for living during winter time? Or they like what
Yeah.
they get from fall, like it's enough to
Hmm.
uh so they can survive then like
Hmm. Correct.
later.
So the revenues that they're able to make, or the money they're able to make from their harvest in the fall, is
Mhm.
good enough to carry them throughout the winter
Wow.
time. So wintertime is kind of a time where farmers would fix equipment,
Mhm.
um, maybe kind of improve their equipment, maybe, that kind of thing. But they won't really go out in the fields and plant anything during the wintertime because the
Mhm.
ground actually is frozen,
Sure.
essentially, or close to frozen. So you couldn't really plant anything during that time, anyways. So,
Mhm.
and then they usually plant in the early spring, like March timeframe in Indiana is when they would plant corn and
Mhm.
soybeans. So,
Cool.
yeah. But
Cool.
Indiana has really good soil, and then it rains enough here to which and it's also, Indiana is very flat, especially northern and central Indiana is very flat. Southern Indiana, we have some hills and things like that, but
Mm.
no mountains or anything like that. So it's a really good place for farmers. And
Yeah.
so Kendra, my wife's grandmother, her husband, who also was a missionary in Brazil for a long time, he grew up as
Mhm.
a farmer. And they have farmland in Indiana where we'll go to the farm and we can see the fields, see the cornfields.
They still have it.
Yep, they still have it.
Ah, so cool.
Hmm.
So
And
cool.
it's really fun to go and see the barns and take our kids to walk around the barns and the fields. And they also have a four wheeler, which is like
This is
yeah,
so cool.
kind of like an off-road motorcycle with four wheels or whatever, and that's really fun to drive too, and that you can drive around the field, if that makes sense. So,
Cool. Yes, it
yep,
does. Awesome.
yep.
Yeah, and you, like, did you grow up like in around farms and stuff or not?
Yeah, I did not grow up on a farm. I
Mm.
grew up in a small town where there was farming around me, but I grew up in a
Mm.
neighborhood. Uh,
Okay, so you're not like from Indianapolis, like
no, no.
originally. Ah, what town are you from?
So I am from Yorktown, but it is a smaller town close to a bigger town called Muncie.
Mm.
And Muncie, and I'm guessing this is actually similar with Brazil, but a lot of our towns and cities and states are named after Native American tribes or
Mm.
indigenous tribes
Sure.
indigenous people that live there. So Muncie is named after the Muncie Indians.
Mhm.
But Indiana, if you think about it, Indiana, it's essentially state of the Indians. That's how Indiana has its
Ah,
name. So
cool.
Indianapolis is the city of Indiana, or the city of
Sure.
Indians, if that makes sense.
Sure. Cool.
So
Cool. And this city you grew up like was so you said you didn't grow up on a farm, but there were farms around you.
correct.
And how was your how is a kid and a teenage life in a small town in the United States? Like, how is life there?
I
A
mean,
lot of basketball, a lot of
I thought it
hockey,
was
a lot of
great. Yeah,
yeah.
a lot of basketball. So Indiana is pretty known for basketball players.
Hmm.
So I grew up. Most most houses where I grew up had a basketball goal in the driveway. So
Mm,
every summer day, if you didn't have school or even after school, you'd go take your basketball to somebody's house and go play basketball at
yeah.
their house in their driveway. So I grew up playing a lot of basketball, um, but we also played baseball, football, so futebol americano.
Hmm.
There is football there, soccer, but nothing like Brazil. Nothing like Brazil.
Ah, of
So,
course. Yeah. Uh-huh.
so yeah, growing up, I played a lot of that. Um, so yeah, it was really fun. But I mean, I had friends who lived on farms where we would go play hide and seek in a cornfield, which is
Ooh, cool,
essentially
funny.
it's impossible because the corn's this high and you can't
Uh,
see anybody. So you just try not to get lost. If that makes sense.
yes, awesome, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, and there's a question here from the guys. Are there tornadoes in Indiana? Because you
Ooh,
said
yeah.
Indiana is pretty flat.
Mm-hmm.
So are
Yep.
tornadoes?
There are tornadoes in Indiana. Yep.
Oh my
They're
gosh.
not as common as some other states that are a little bit southwest of us, like Kansas
Mm-hmm.
and Oklahoma get a lot of tornadoes. But
Mm-hmm.
those tornadoes can sometimes kind of go up to Indiana. So I grew up, I have many memories of, being in a hallway with pillows or in our basement watching the news to see when the tornado comes by.
Wow.
So we'd have the
Oh
news on
my
the TV
gosh.
where the tornado goes. But um, the interesting thing with tornadoes is that they're completely random on where they go. So in theory, they could hit a city, they could come hit Indianapolis, but they're also really, really small. Their diameter is usually, or not, I don't know, maybe half a mile long or something like that, which seems really, really big. But
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That's not
it's really
small.
big. But if a state is hundreds and thousands of miles big,
Mm-hmm.
usually they don't hit anything, but sometimes they do hit things, and it gets pretty
Wow.
or it's pretty sad and dangerous. But generally speaking, now luckily with science we can get a better idea on when they're coming. The meteorologists will say there's a tornado warning or there's a tornado
Mm-hmm.
watch, and
Yeah. So,
that
do you have
cause
a
people
kind
to.
of a sign or something that like wow, I don't know, that
Yep.
tells everybody and he like
Yep.
just run and hide?
Yep,
No.
there are tornado sirens, I would assume, in every town in Indiana that
Oh.
the town or the city would operate. So they would
Mm-hmm.
get a notification from the weather service that there could be a tornado on the way, and the sirens
Mm-hmm.
would blare. But nowadays, with everybody having cell phones and things, right, you just kind of
Sure.
get a notification on your cell phone, and it tells you that there's a tornado coming. I mean, I get notifications on my cell phone now that says in the next 24 hours there will be storms that could produce tornadoes. So
Wow.
you get a lot of notification ahead of time. But again, it's kind of like, you can try to hide in your basement or try to, you can do what you can, but more or less, I think you just pray, if that makes sense, that it doesn't hit
Of
anybody or hit
course.
you.
Yeah. Like maybe a notification, like 24-hour notification. This is amazing. Like you have
Yeah.
time to not get yourself killed
Yeah.
by a tornado. But of
Correct.
course, if the tornado is going towards your house, I'm sorry, there's nothing you can do to save your house, right?
Hmm.
But at least you're not gonna die. You can rebuild it, right? So
Yep.
that's it. And do you have like where you live now? Do you have a basement or things to protect you from tornadoes or like?
So our house, I grew up in a house that had a basement, and we'd go to the basement for tornadoes.
Mhm. And is it safe, like for real, or
It's a
kind
good
of?
question, actually, to tell you the truth. I don't know if it's kind of like, just go to the basement so everybody feels better about the tornado coming. I don't know
Uh
exactly.
huh.
I do think it's helpful. I know that there are tornado shelters that people
Mm-hmm.
can go to, and those shelters are pretty safe.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times a town or a city will have a shelter where people can go to if they're given
Mm-hmm.
fair warning. But it's a little dangerous, right? Because if you're not given enough warning, you might be on your way to the shelter when the tornado comes, and now you're in your car when a tornado
Oh,
comes. But
which is dangerous. Right.
Correct. So on the side of the road in Indiana, and I think this is common anywhere, probably in Brazil too, but you have ditches, right? So you have the road and then you have like
Sure.
a ditch, right? I was always taught as a young kid that, hey, if a tornado is coming, we pull over the side of the road and we get into the ditch. So
But like inside the car or outside the car?
outside the car.
Outside the car.
Because the tornado can pick up the car.
But
so the idea is that if you get in a ditch, you get lower than when the tornado is going to come across.
I got it.
Again, I don't know exactly if that really saves you or if it's just like,
yeah,
I
don't know.
I kind of wonder, my parents growing up during the Cold War, they had nuclear weapons drills where they'd all get underneath their desks. And they all laugh. And they say, "Well, that wasn't going to stop us if a nuclear weapon hit us to get out."
It's a nuclear weapon. Come on.
So I don't know if it's the same thing, But,
I got it. Have you ever seen a tornado like near you or?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I've never seen a tornado touch ground. I don't think, but I saw a funnel cloud, which is basically the beginning of a tornado, and then it has the ability to touch ground after that. But it's basically a cloud in the sky that's turning into a funnel.
So it must be really scary, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or you get used to it.
You kind of get used to it. But another thing is that it's not as common. It's not as if I would say that every year we probably have here where I live right now, we probably have 2 or 3 tornado warnings, meaning that a tornado has touched down within probably a 50-mile radius of us, right? So, and when we moved to Michigan, Michigan doesn't have as many tornadoes, so we'll probably not have to worry too much about tornadoes. But the scary thing more is getting the alert in the middle of the night. So, for example, a year ago, we were woken up at 3 a.m. by our phones going off because there was a tornado warning. And, we had to run upstairs, grab our kids and get down and get into a closet where we thought it was a little bit more safe. And, the kids were, of course, tired and kind of sleepy and a little scared as to why we were there. And usually have to kind of stay there for like an hour or so to wait to make sure that there's no tornado to come. So that's the no fun part, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I got it. And how is this notification on your phone? Is this an app that you need to download, or is this like?
I think that all phones actually come with like emergency notification thing. So you could get other alerts. So
I got it. Wow. Yeah, this must be scary. Yeah, okay, Okay, let's get back to basketball. I think that was nicer. Sure. Yeah. And how is because I remember talking to you once and you told me that like it's really common to have like people playing basketball in Indiana. Indiana is very famous for having like good basketball, And do you have good basketball players playing like on NBA, like from Indiana, or is it common or not?
Yeah, I'd say it's common. So Indiana has had some really good basketball players come out of either the state of Indiana or the universities. Where basketball players would go to the universities to play. A part of me thinks that a reason for this is that Indiana, it's cold here for half of the year, and basketball is an indoor sport. So, we can't really play baseball as much. We can't really play football as much. Of course, if we knew about futsal, we could, right? But we don't. So a lot of the time, during the winter time, you go play basketball inside. The most famous basketball player to come from Indiana is Larry Bird.
Sure.
Você sabe Larry Bird?
Of course, from Boston Celtics, right?
Yep, Boston Celtics. So he grew up in Indiana, went to Indiana State University, which is kind of a smaller college, actually, to tell you the truth, in Indiana. And he played for Indiana State University. And then almost won a national title, meaning like a championship with Indiana State, kind of by himself, if that makes sense, because Indiana State's not really known for being a good basketball school, but he wanted to
he was carrying
close to home. Yeah, he was carrying the team. And then he went to the Boston Celtics and, played against Jordan and won
Yeah.
championships with Boston. So
Uh-huh.
Larry Bird's probably our most famous. Yeah, he's definitely our most famous basketball player.
Sure.
Isaiah Thomas came from Indiana University
Mm,
and
I'm not sure
played.
about this
He
one.
played for the Pistons, Detroit
Mm-hmm.
Pistons. He's a Hall of Famer, but he played a lot with Jordan, and they didn't like each
Mm-hmm.
other that much. But
All right, got it. Yeah.
I would say that Indiana is known for bringing players from high school to go to other colleges. Now, Indiana colleges, but also other colleges in the country. So, colleges from North Carolina will come to Indiana and steal our players because they're better than the players in North Carolina, I think. So,
Got it.
but Indiana University, which would be the Hoosiers, that is one of
Mm-hmm.
the main universities, the public university in Indiana.
Mm.
Um, they have won 5 national titles, which is maybe the second or third most out of any other college in the United States.
Wow.
So
So,
Indiana is known or Indiana University is known for basketball.
cool.
Yep.
Cool. Cool. And what about what about the here in Brazil, we like racing sports,
Mm-hmm.
but I can
Well, of
see.
course, you got Senna.
Yeah,
You
that's the
know?
thing. But like, yeah, like especially like older people, they love because of Senna, Piquet,
Mm-hmm.
Fittipaldi. We have
Mm-hmm.
those like legends, and it was amazing. I I'm a little sad when I hear the name Barrichello because I think he's an amazing driver, and Brazilians don't recognize his talent because he didn't win, in
So
Formula
who wins
One.
Barrichello?
Yeah, but he's amazing. He's really good, but I'm I'm not sure we give him the credit he deserves,
Sure, sure.
And after because after Senna, we didn't have any Brazilian winning. Barrichello was close, but like he was in Formula One, but he teamed up with Schumacher, and
Yeah,
like it was really hard.
Schumacher stole
Schumacher,
his
Schumacher,
points.
yes, yes, and then we had Felipe Massa, which is like who is a really amazing driver, but also like he couldn't win, and I think
I think he
after.
lost the championship on the last race to
No,
Hamilton,
don't
right?
tell me about. I hate talking about that. Honestly, I remember that day like it was today. It was in Interlagos here
Oh
in
man.
Brazil. Yeah, and man, when he crossed it, he needed to win the race, and Hamilton needs to be, I think, in fifth place or sixth place, and then he would win, and he crossed the line first. Man, I remember like shouting like, we're champion again. And after like 30 seconds, something like that, Hamilton, Timo Glock, I remember this guy, the last curve, can I say last curve?
Yeah, yeah, sure.
And Hamilton overtook the his place, and he was the champion. And I got furious. Yeah, I got
Yeah, of
furious.
course.
And everybody, and I think after that, boom, like Brazil was off in Formula One, and I don't know for what reason we don't really watch a lot of Indy, because we have Hélio Castro Neves, Tony Canaan, like who are amazing too, and but we don't watch a lot of that. And so how is in here, like we like racing, but I
Mhm.
can see that there's not a lot of encouragement from the government or any things like encouraging people to become drivers, and it's because it's a very like expensive sport
Mhm.
here in Brazil. I don't know in the United States, but here in Brazil it's
Of course.
extremely expensive.
Sure.
And how is that in Indianapolis? Because like, man, you have NASCAR, you have Indy, and you have other stuff too. You have other races. I saw the
Sure.
truck thing, which is amazing, and
Yeah.
lots of other things. So how is that? Like, is it not? I wouldn't say easy, but you have access to become a pro driver or not? Like, it's hard. How does that work in
Yeah. So
Indianapolis?
it's a really good question. I would say that I would kind of hope, I don't know personally from experience,
Hmm.
because as a kid, you don't really, unless you really seek it out. And my parents didn't seek it out for me. But
Sure.
you don't really just say, hey, let's go race go karts today. Now there are places where you could go race go karts, but they're more for like birthday parties and things like that. It's not really
Mhm.
competitive, if that
I
makes
got
sense.
it. Just for fun. Like,
Correct. Now, I would say the sport itself is really popular here because of the Indy 500, because of
mhm,
NASCAR, where we have racers that have come from Indiana, um, and have done really well. Jeff
mhm,
Gordon for NASCAR, he grew up in Indiana, so
mhm,
that would be an example. And I think there are several Indy 500 winners from Indiana as well.
mhm.
However, recently it's mostly Brazilians who are winning the Indy 500. So, that's
Yeah,
pretty
I wouldn't
cool
say
too.
mostly, but I
Uh,
would say that we have
yeah,
Brazilians win there.
I think. Well, Castaneves has won 4 times,
I think
maybe
4 or
five.
5. Yeah.
I think four, and Kanaan has
Yeah.
won one once.
Yeah.
So yeah, pretty cool, pretty awesome. I think the kind of cool thing is that where we live right now, um, is where a lot of the racing teams. So because the Indianapolis 500 is such a big race, a lot of
Mhm.
racing teams have their headquarters in Indiana. So when you ask of,
Mhm.
okay, is it easier to get into the sport? A part of me thinks it might be because you could start off young with that racing team and
Mhm.
say, hey, I'd like to try to race. But
Mhm.
my assumption is that you would have to kind of pay your way, because if you crash a car, they
Mhm.
don't really want to pay, for your
No.
mistake, if that makes sense. But
Sure.
there's actually a racing team that's building their headquarters 2 or 3 minutes away from my house. I could walk to it, so that's kind
Cool.
of cool. And it's yeah, it's pretty cool. So, uh, but yeah, there's like Andretti Motorsport is here, so that's like Mario Andretti, Michael Andretti. So Andretti
Mhm.
Motorsport is here, and then the one that's coming in is, I think, Ray Hall, Letterman Lanigan, which is a smaller team. But I think Takumi Sato won the Indy 500 2 or 3 years ago, and he raced
Mhm.
for them. So they're a big enough team. And
And those teams you're talking about, are they from Indy or from NASCAR or from like
those are
both?
Indy teams.
Indy. Mhm.
Yep. Yep.
Got it.
Not, I
Got
don't
it.
think that as many NASCAR things going on.
Yeah, I heard the most of the teams are in North Carolina or something like that. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right.
Yeah, there's something about that.
Yeah.
Cool. And because I'm asking you that because like everything we hear about the United States, this is again like this is nice talking to you about because maybe it's a stereotype and it's really nice talking to somebody who can actually
Mhm.
say like I'm sorry, this is a stereotype or no, yeah,
Well,
this is true.
well,
Because
I
for
think
example,
what's kind of, oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
so I have heard like we hear in Brazil that in the United States you were like introduced to lots of sports like all the time and there is a really hard competition for you to go like in schools and to go to college and college sports are really a big thing in the United
Mhm.
States uh, and then you have pro sports so
Mhm.
and I wish in Brazil we had the same thing but I don't really know how it works so that's why I asked you maybe there's a difference because you like can you get a scholarship in college by racing kart or something like that or not?
Not with schools, no.
Hmm.
My assumption is that you would have to kind of get that scholarship with the team, to which they would say,
Like
and it's not
the
really for
team
college.
would pay,
The team would just pay for your car and your trip, but they
but
wouldn't pay
not.
for any schooling or anything. So
Ah, okay.
no
So
colleges have like racing teams or anything like that.
yeah, that was my question. Like no,
Yep.
so no.
Yep.
I
But
got it.
you're right that it is very competitive sports wise.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
basketball, football, baseball, soccer, even. So it's one of those, especially in certain parts of the United States where there's a lot of when people have a lot of money.
Hmm.
Um, you're kind of expected to pay a lot of money for training for your child so that he or she can play high school sports and be good enough to
Like
play
you
college
mean
sports.
paying for extra practice? Like
Yep.
mm,
Yep. So,
interesting.
yep.
And how does that work? Like how does sport work in college? And because I'm not sure, but I know you kids go to school from 8:30 to 3, 4 or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yep.
And
Yep.
and how do they practice sport in school? How does
Mhm.
that work? The leagues and
So yeah, so I played high school sports. Middle. So basically, you start sports with your school in middle school, which would be Fourth, fifth, sixth grade. No, sorry, seventh, eighth, and sixth,
Mhm.
seventh, and eighth grade would be middle
Like
school.
12
So
years old. 11,
exactly.
12 years
So
old.
so a lot of the time, what that is that you would have practice every day after school. So you would have school till
Mm.
3:30, and then have practice till 5:30. Go home, eat dinner,
Mm.
do homework, head a shot a little bit, and then go
I
back to
got it.
school the next day. So, but
Ah.
there are different seasons for sports. So, in the fall, you would be playing futebol americano or futebol,
Mhm. Mhm.
futebol brasileiro.
I got it.
And then in the wintertime, basketball, you would play basketball. And in the summertime, you play baseball. So,
So
um,
it's not like the whole year. Like it's separated this way. So there are some people who have like uh sports skills. And they can play more than one sport. So they can
mhm.
play more than one sport in competitions and like
Yes.
that.
Yes. Now
Oh.
that's how I grew up. Nowadays, I think it's getting very competitive that unless you're just a fantastic athlete, like in order for you to play, you might have to specialize early in a sport. So if it's baseball and you only play in the summer, well, you're going to some gym in the wintertime and hitting baseballs, while
Got it.
nobody else is doing it so that you can improve your skills.
Got it. Got it.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
So
it's
it's
pretty
better
competitive.
to Okay, I got it. So you practice. So you go to school 8:30 in the morning, and then you practice after school.
Mhm.
That's it. And
Yep.
what about the leagues? Are the leagues like competitive? Do you have the crowd cheering for you? Like is like you see in the
Sure, yeah.
movies? Okay,
Not too much, no. The leagues are you're gonna be if you're playing for your school, you'll be playing other schools around the area mostly.
sure.
And the crowds are mostly gonna be parents and friends or whatever, or grandparents. So
Okay,
it's
yeah.
not.
It's just like here in
But high
Brazil.
school, you can have, especially in other states. So basketball in Indiana, we have pretty big stadiums for high school basketball where it could seat thousands of people to watch a high school basketball game. Or
Wow.
Texas, and Florida and Georgia in the southern part of the United States, football americano is very big.
Hmm.
So you're going to have very big stadiums for high school football.
Wow.
But some of our stadiums here in the United States, some of our biggest stadiums are college football stadiums, not professional
Hmm.
football stadiums.
Hmm.
So you have more people watching college football than professional football in
Really?
person
And why
because
is that?
well, I think partly it's because you have students who want to go to the game and watch the game. So if you're a public school and you have, tens of thousands of students, you have to build a stadium big enough for them, but you also have to build
Uh,
that stadium enough for parents and then alumni or people who used to go to that school who want to support the team still.
So it is it a rule? Like if you have a college with like 15,000 students, you must build a stadium for 45, or like no, it's just
No,
like
no.
they do that because they want.
They do that because people will pay to come to the game and they can make a lot of
They
money.
can make a lot of
So
money. Got it.
there's an interesting. Now I'm on a tangent, but there's an interesting map that you can pull up where you can find the highest paid public employee in every state.
Sure.
And because schools here are public, universities or a lot of universities are public, the
Hmm.
highest paid public employee is usually a football coach or a basketball coach. They make
Really?
millions and millions and millions of dollars to coach college football.
Wow.
Hmm.
And okay, we talked about school, but how does
Yeah.
sport work in college? Like because how can you get a scholarship like
Mhm.
to or like yeah, this is one question. And the only way for you to play in college is if you get a scholarship, or maybe you can, like, I don't know, get a in a test and while you were in college, and people can realize that you're good and you can play. Like, how does that work?
Sure. So, I mean, this is only for athletic scholarships, but you would be scouted or, viewed in high school, playing in high school, where
Hmm.
colleges would look at you and say, that person's really good. We want them to be on our team. So they would
Hmm.
offer you a full ride scholarship to the university, meaning that you can go to college for free as long as you play
Hmm.
football or basketball for that college.
Hmm.
Now, American sports, though, I guess there's been a very big dynamic change in American college sports the last couple of years. which
Mm.
I don't even know if I can explain it that well, but essentially the argument is that colleges are making millions and millions and millions of dollars off these kids and only offering them a full ride scholarship to universities, which I think full ride scholarships are very
Ah.
valuable. But the colleges, kind of what I was telling you about, can sell a stadium that has 80,000 seats, and they can sell it out because everybody wants to watch this one really good, 19-year-old quarterback, and that 19-year-old quarterback is
Mm.
not making any money, right?
My
So there
God.
has been a dynamic shift in which colleges are now allowing it. It's kind of interesting, like legal loophole or jargon, but they're allowing students to make money now while playing college football,
Ooh.
which is very difficult because you are now giving millions of dollars to 18-year-old
This
people.
is what happened here in Brazil with soccer.
Sure.
And I'm not sure this is a good idea because they're so young. But at the
Yeah.
meantime, I understand people asking for that to happen because maybe it's kind of fair, right? They're
Yeah.
Yeah. Are colleges in the United States extremely expensive or not? Because this is a difference from Brazil. Public When
Yeah.
we talk about public colleges, it
Hmm.
means that you don't have to pay for them. But in the United States, it's different, right? It's public,
Correct.
but you must pay,
You have to
right?
pay. So,
And is it expensive?
yes. Yes. And colleges have gotten way more expensive the last 20 or 30 years.
Wow. How
Um,
much does that cost? Just for us to have an idea, like in a for a
so
year,
for a public university, maybe $10,000 a year to go
ten
there.
thousand, $10,000 a year.
Let's see here.
It's
Uh,
not that expensive. Like 40,000, like for 4 years.
let's see here. And board. Just kind of looking here. So,
Okay, I got it.
all right, I'm wrong. So it kind of also depends so there's a lot of different things, but if it's a state school,
Uh
that
huh.
means that it is partially funded by the government.
Sure.
So it's not going to be as expensive for people who live in that state. So
So you have
in
that.
a university for me per year, and I was way off. Um, so the problem is that tuition might only be like $10,000 or $15,000, but you have all these other fees that you're required to pay. Like you are required to live on campus. You're required to pay
Uh,
for library. You're required to pay for the gym. To which, just looking really fast, it says Indiana residents for total direct cost for a year is $24,000. But
that's a lot of money.
if you are out of state, so if you lived in Michigan but wanted to go to Indiana University, it's $51,000 a year.
My gosh.
So, and you go to college for 4 years.
Yeah, that
So,
would be like
uh,
200,000.
correct. So there's a big problem in the United States where a lot of college students decide not to pay their way and take loans. So they graduate with hundreds of thousands of dollars in loans that they have to pay off. And the expectation is that you would get a job and pay off those loans.
But what if it doesn't
However,
happen?
what if it doesn't happen? What if you can't get a job? What if there's nobody's hiring, or what if your degree doesn't afford you enough money, right? So
Hmm.
if everybody has to pay $24,000, whether you're going into engineering, which is more in demand and would pay you more, or if you wanted to teach at a public school, which is
Hmm.
um, in demand, but they don't get paid nearly what they should be getting paid. They're actually paid very
Sure.
little, to
Hmm.
which all of a sudden you have this burden of hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt and in a job that can't really pay
My
to
gosh. But
cover.
are the prices the same? Like going to study engineering and studying, like, I don't know,
For
English?
undergraduate, yes. Now that is for your 4 year university, but after your 4 years, if you want to get an advanced degree, you would have to go again to another university. So I went to a college for 4 years, and then I got a master's degree in business from Indiana University that took me 2 more years that I had to pay additional for.
Oh, wow. A lot of
So
money, man.
yeah, it is a
A
lot
lot
of
of
money.
money. But here in Brazil, the private institutions that we have to pay, like there is a difference of
Mhm.
price. Like if you want to study to be a teacher, like it's a lot cheaper than like studying to be a doctor.
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
I'm not sure it's fair or
Yeah.
not, but like, yeah, I think it does. It makes sense because you're probably making more money as a doctor than as a teacher,
Sure.
right?
No, it does make sense. It makes perfect sense. Now, it's
Mhm.
kind of the same thing here because a doctor, you'd have to get 4 or 5 additional years of education to be a doctor in the United
Ah,
States.
yeah. So like you pay for the
And
4 years,
medical
but
school
they
é
need,
muito, muito caro. So,
yeah, because you stay, but not. But is it expensive because you stay longer or because the course is expensive? I think it's
both,
because you stay longer. Both. Ah,
both.
okay, I got it. I got it.
I'm
Oh
guessing,
wow.
med school tuition is pretty expensive too.
My gosh. Yeah. Yeah. Here in Brazil, everything is expensive now. So
Yeah. Yeah, average
I got
cost
it.
of med school is $55,000 in the United States per year. But the idea is that, okay, well, I'm going to go to become a doctor and I'll make a lot of money so I can pay off that debt.
Hmm.
But there are a lot of med school students who did not graduate because it was too hard or life got in the way. So they have
Ooh,
that debt. They don't have anything. Yeah. So,
my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. So like they pay. So the college pay like 50,000 uh dollars for the student to play, and like with the course,
kind of.
and they make millions. That's
Yep.
not fair, to be
Yep.
honest. Yeah,
Yep. No, that's not fair.
if you think that way,
Yeah.
but at the meantime, man, I think like, because our reality here in Brazil, like when we see amazing soccer players making a lot of money,
Hmm.
if they play in big teams like Santos, São Paulo, Corinthians, Palmeiras, like they don't need to be like really, really good soccer players to make a lot of money. We have seen people like they are 16, 15, 17 making like 80,000 a month.
Wow.
And like this is a lot of money. Of course, this is not for everybody. There are more soccer players that don't make money at all, that they're struggling to become pros. But
Hmm.
the ones that have the opportunity of starting in a big team, and maybe because I don't know, God knows, we don't know, but they are making some real good money. And I think I'm not sure this is healthy, because some of them, they come out of nowhere,
Hmm.
and of course it's a good thing because they can help their families and etc.
Sure.
But we can see some scandals too, because they they are not kind of ready to deal with them when they're so young. So maybe having those guys, athletes, young athletes, making a lot of money before becoming pro athletes, maybe can change a bit
Sure. Yeah.
the world of pro
Hmm.
athletes later.
Hmm.
Gosh. And how many years can you play in college? Because like,
Uh,
is there a
4.
chance only 4 years?
Hmm.
Like, and what if you start college later? Can you play, or you have like you can play from 18 to 22 years old and that's it?
Yeah, no, you can start later.
Hmm.
It's called eligibility. So you have to
Hmm.
have 4 years of eligibility, but after 4 years, you would then go on the professionals if you're good enough. But
And you can't
some,
play twice. Like, for example, I go to college to study 4 years, and then I go again to college to study 4 years and play 8 years in college sport. Can I do that or not?
maybe if you play different sports, but you
Mm,
couldn't play baseball for 8 years now.
I got it. I got it.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. That's
But
and
nowadays, some students just go for 2 years and then go to the pros because the professional leagues are pressuring colleges to not keep students as long because these students are ready to go pro, and the professional leagues want those players now and not,
mhm.
they don't want
and
them to stay because you're more, likely to get injured or get hurt, so that kind of goes
mhm.
into the situation as well.
And what is your opinion about that?
I think it's a complex problem. A part of me says no, these players need to stay in college for 4 years, but the truth is that they're not really going to class, right? So if
Mm,
you're a really good college football player, you're going to take really easy classes, and the school, basically you have to get good grades. So the school will make you get good grades, like
really?
either like illegally, which I don't really know happens. That used to happen a lot, like in the 90s, I think.
Uh-huh.
Or, the college pays like a professional tutor to
Got it.
like make sure you go to class and like,
Ah,
help you with papers.
I got
Um,
it.
to which it's kind of like this quasi, like, is this person really learning anything? Are they really getting anything from college? So a
Mm.
part of me thinks that if the player's really not there to go and learn and mature, then I don't know why they have to stay there for 4 years to go to college.
I got it. And like, do the championships like get in the way of studying, or like
Oh yeah.
is it organized like you have time for everything? Like, no, it's just like you have to play, you have to go, and
I
that's
mean,
it.
I'm sure I would say this: they get in the way of studying, but the professors, the school knows that that player is going to go play in this tournament, so
Mm.
they're going to let them finish this class later. You know,
Ah, okay, got it.
and it could be something where, you know, college usually lasts 4 years. If I took a lot of classes, I could maybe do it in three. Kendra did
Mm.
it. My wife did it in 3.5 because she took more classes than most people.
Mm-hmm.
But you could also take way less classes. So you only take like 1 or 2 classes a semester. And
Mm-hmm.
if those classes are gym and, something else that doesn't,
Mm.
in weightlifting or something like that, you're not really, needing.
I got it.
I'm not knocking those, but it's more of, if you're an athlete, you don't really need to learn how to weightlift, right?
No.
So
Yeah. I got it. And how does that work in college? Like, because we hear here that you can choose the subjects that better suit you,
mhm.
or because here in Brazil, like if you want to be an English teacher, you're going to study in a specific course. If you want to be, I don't know, you want to work with engineering, you want to be in electric engineering, so of course you're going to have some subjects that can help you with other kinds of engineering, but your degree is going to be exclusive for electric engineering. And how does that work in the United States? Can you choose more subjects, and can you, like, how does that work?
Sure. So, I mean, first off, in Brazil, you have the vestibular, right?
Sure. Hmm.
And that test actually is specialized for what you want to do, right?
Sure.
So Kendra, my wife, took it in psychologia, so she took
Hmm.
the psychology test. The United States, we don't have tests like that to go to college. We just have standardized tests that are the same for every student. So, if I want to be a
Mm.
doctor, I would just take that, but I would also have to take a secondary test after to go to med school.
Mm.
Does that make sense? So
Sure.
when you go to college, you will choose a major, which is essentially the subject that you want to focus on more than other
Hmm.
subjects. But you're also required to take a baseline, or we call them core classes,
Hmm.
which would be the core of your education. Like, you have to take some kind of math, you need to take some English, you need to
Hmm.
take some science, right? But if your major is engineering, then you're going to
Hmm.
focus on engineering classes, not
I got it.
not other classes. But for a
Okay.
medical student, there aren't really a lot of specific medical classes for undergrad, I don't think. So you take chemistry and biology and those kinds of classes, and then
Hmm.
study for a another test later on in college to go to make sure you can get into medical school.
And what did you study?
I studied political science,
Political science.
politicus. Yeah. So um, the story is, I should have studied economics because that's what I was really interested in, but I did not like math that much. So
Hmm.
political science did not require math. So I thought, okay, I'll do this. And now I work as an energy consultant, really doing math all day. So I didn't really think
Oh
that one
god.
through. but
Okay. And you
but
have, like, in your work you don't use anything from political science, or do you think you use something you learned there? No.
nah.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit, just because there are a lot of regulations in the energy industry
Mm.
for polluting and different things like that.
Hmm.
But no, not that much.
And can you tell us a little bit about your job? Like, because you said you were an energy consultant, right?
Yeah,
And
consultor. Yeah.
yeah, and like, what is that? Because here in Brazil, like, we have, especially like where I live, we have one energy company, and that's it. And even if you start installing, for example, into your home a solar panel to try to have like solar energy, you must pay something for the energy company, and that's it.
Mhm.
Like there's no like, what do you do? Well, what kinds of energy you have in the United States and etc. Like, what's
Sure.
that?
Sure. Yeah. So I work my current job. I've been in this job for about 3 years, but before that, I did other things in the energy industry. So, for example, when I was younger, I bought natural gas for power plants. So, there's
Mm.
trading that goes on in the energy industry as well. So, a lot of what our company does is works with other companies to trade energy better, to make
Mm.
sure that they can save money by not losing energy or selling it at higher prices or not and buying it at lower prices.
So you can
So,
sell energy? Like
mhm,
what?
mhm. So if
Oh.
like Londrina had a power plant,
Hmm.
Londrina could sell Maringá power, so Maringá would not have to run their power plant. So if Londrina's power
Oh.
plant is more efficient or cheaper, Londrina could make money off of a neighboring town or city
Hmm.
who might not have a power plant. So that's kind of how
Wow.
you trade electricity or trade gas. So in my current role, a good example is that a company could come to us and say, we have a coal power plant that's getting ready to retire because it's too old and we
Hmm.
need to retire it. And it's not performing that well. So over the next 30 years, what power plants should we invest in to replace this coal plant? So then my company would be able to run some like modeling programs
Hmm.
to look at what power plants best fit their energy portfolio. So,
Wow.
what
This
what would
is
it do if this coal plant went down and you put in all wind power, or a combination of
uh,
wind power and solar power, or natural gas, power? Like, how much would that
what types of
cost?
energy do you have? You have solar, wind, what else?
Coal, natural
Uh-huh.
gas, nuclear,
Wow.
hydroelectric, right?
Hmm.
Like
Sure.
Itaipu, right?
Uh-huh.
So hydroelectric power dam, yeah, hydroelectric dams. Um, those are the main ones. We do have batteries. Batteries are kind of the new energy where
Hmm.
solar, basically batteries could sit right next to a solar panel. So when
Hmm.
it's sunny out, the solar panel could charge the battery. And
Hmm.
then when it gets dark out, that battery could turn on so that you give electricity when the sun goes down, because the solar panel couldn't give you electricity during that time. So that's kind of the
Wow.
newer technology that's coming out.
Wow. And are there a lot of competition in this world? Like, because like I told you, here in Londrina we have one company. So if you
Mhm,
want a better price, if you want, you have one company. They do whatever they
mhm,
want. So
mhm.
how's that?
That's kind of a complex question, because certain states allow for total competition, to which somebody could come to your
Mm.
house and say, "I'm with this energy company, and you are currently with another energy company, so we want to provide you service, and we'll do it at a cheaper rate."
Mhm.
So that's kind of starting to happen in like Texas, and
Mhm.
then like California is also happening. Indiana, I don't think it's like that. Basically, wherever you live, you pay that energy company for your power.
Mm.
So there's not that much competition in that sense, but
Mhm.
there's always going to be competition from um, people that, I guess, like among the industry, saying we want to sell you a natural gas power plant, and other
Mhm.
people will say we want to sell you a solar plant. And
Mm.
so there's competition kind of on that level.
I got it. I got it. Interesting. Interesting. So I told you we're gonna keep him 40, and I'm wrong again. I'm sorry. So to go to the end, one more time, I
Yeah,
just want to talk about the sponsor. Man, when you come to Brazil,
sure.
I will introduce you to Seu Bredes. I told you it's in English could be like Mr. Bread. That would be cool, you know. And that's it. This is the best hot dog you could have in your life, man. And there is one here. I don't know how to say that in English. I'm sorry, but it's with meat. It's like how to say carne moída in English. I don't know that. I'm sorry, guys. Uh, but that's it. We have that, those hot dogs are amazing. We have the combos. Então, gente, ó, a gente tem os combos, né, individuais. Você põe aqui, eu já vem direcionado aqui o que, que teria para você aqui. Ah, não, minha família é muito grande, igual a minha aqui, a família é grande. Então, vem combo família completo. Tem várias opções aqui para você comprar. Não esquece de entrar lá no Instagram, clica no link. Olha aqui, ó. Ai, gente, a gente comeu essa semana aqui, hein? Foi bom demais. Ó, dá para fazer o seu pedido no horário do almoço. Então, a partir das 11, né, você pode pedir, tá? Olha lá, ó, das 11 às 14 e das 18 às 23h59, hein, gente? Hoje, sabadão, dia de podcast e dia de seu Breads. Ah, meu Deus do céu, tô com fome, hora do almoço. E, rapaz, olha isso aqui. How do you call this meat, Mark? Do you know this is a type of meat?
Like shredded beef, I think. It looks good.
Oh, man, it's amazing. This is the best one. When you come to Brazil, I will buy you one of these.
All
And
right, great. And when you
yeah,
come to America, I'll make you an American hot dog.
this is amazing. Yeah, this is amazing.
These
Okay.
look better.
Man, this is amazing. You should try. Oh my gosh, you're gonna see this is the best. Those French fries here, delicious. Yeah, that's it. So to finish, how do I come back? Okay, here. I have some questions. No, not I, but people ask you some questions. Oh, I got ground beef. This is what I
Ground
want.
beef, that's right.
Ground beef. Yes. You see, I didn't know, and the American didn't know either. So that's not too bad. Okay. So I have some questions people ask you. And again, feel free to answer those questions or just say, I will not answer. And that's it. Okay, first question. There's one here. You are married to a Brazilian woman. What's the biggest difficulty related to cultural differences? What's your favorite thing about Brazil? Two questions. Hard?
So I'll start with my favorite thing about Brazil is the people.
Sure.
The Brazilians are so warm. Muito simpático, muito gentil. Is that right to say?
Yeah, yeah.
So something that's different, I think, in Brazil compared to America is if you visit America and you go to someone's house, they'll tell you, hey, are you hungry? Do you need anything to eat? Brazilians will just bring out all their food and say, please eat. You must be hungry.
Yeah.
Please eat. So you don't have to feel bad about asking for food.
Okay.
So, Brazilians are so warm, and that's my favorite thing about Brazil. A cultural difference with having a Brazilian wife. Well, she speaks completely Portuguese to our children. So sometimes I will not know what they're talking about. So that's partly why I'm trying to take classes in Portuguese so that I can learn, what they're saying.
They won't talk behind your back, huh?
Exactly. But I'd say a good example of a cultural difference is that when we got married, I wanted to buy a house in the neighborhood, and she wanted to get an apartment. And I asked her why, and she said because houses are dangerous. In the United States, we would look at apartments as more dangerous than houses.
Why?
So, because apartments in the United States are not necessarily, especially in Indiana, aren't these really tall, high-rise apartments with a doorman. They're more of just like little groupings of, maybe 6 or 7 different apartments in a big building. So your security is not as good as you think it is, if that makes sense.
Okay.
While a house is in a neighborhood with tons of houses and everybody kind of knows each other. You have neighbors and that kind of thing. But yeah, I don't know. That's kind of how I think about it. But I also think, culturally, maybe there isn't that big of a reason to think that apartments are more dangerous than houses. It's just maybe they're the same, right? But growing up, you always thought of houses being more secure because that's how I grew up.
Got it. Cool. Let me ask you. Let me see here. Okay, your first time in Brazil. How was it? What was your thoughts about Brazil your first time?
Hmm. My first time in Brazil, my
When
wife
was
and
it?
I were dating, so
Uh,
that would have been 10 years ago.
I remember that.
And I
We had
met
we
Carlos
Yeah, we had a
first
great
time in Brazil.
adventure.
We did. I told your mother about this adventure because she
Yeah,
teaches me. But
that was so
she
cool.
asked me to write a story about a funny experience I had. And I said
Ah,
I got a great idea. So my first time in Brazil overall was great. It was also a little scary because I did not know the language at all. So I was fully
mhm,
relying on Kendra to speak for me. I
mhm.
found out that I'm not as funny as I think I am in Portuguese because there's a lot of cultural jokes and different things that just don't make sense.
It's
And
different.
also,
Yeah,
but also,
humor it's different.
well, and also it's like Brazilians will be talking, and I might pick up on a couple things, and I want to add to the conversation, so I'll add it, and they'll all look at me and they're like, "Oh, we talked about that a minute or two ago. Like we're already past that in the conversation." Um, but no, Carlos took me to the Autódromo Ayrton Senna Internacional, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
the security guard,
Uh-huh.
Guarda Segurança came up to us, and Carlos said, "Hey, we need to get on the track." And Carlos, you were in your car, right? So it was me and
Yeah.
you in your car, and the guy said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, I have this American here from Indianapolis. The Indianapolis 500." And the security guard goes, "Oh, yeah, okay." And then he let us get on the track. So Carlos drove me around the Autodromo.
Yeah,
Uh,
and he said something that I don't forget. He said, "Okay, you go there, but just don't crash the car, please." He said that. I don't know if you remember that. And then we
oh,
went
that's
like on
hilarious.
Fiesta Laranja, an orange Fiesta, really small, and we were there like racing,
We
but not
drove we
fast,
drove
not
around the
fast.
racetrack. So that was my first time. That was my only time driving around a racetrack. So that was in
Yeah, you
Brazil,
see.
not in Indiana. So
Yeah, now you know that you owe me. Yeah, you owe me five Indy 500. I took you to Londrina
hey,
500.
come
Now
in
you know
May.
that.
Come in May.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
take you to the 500 for sure.
Sure, sure.
It's done.
That was cool. That was cool.
Deal.
Okay, and but what was your first impressions about Brazil? Like
Yeah.
Brazil. Like, were you? I don't know. Some people say that like it's a bit scary or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't think it was scary. It's just a little different because the United States, everything is more spread out. So people drive everywhere.
Hmm.
Everybody has houses and neighborhoods, not really apartments. So that was different. I
Hmm.
don't know if I would say it was scary, but you live in your country your whole life and you just have one way of thinking, one way of being, and then you go
Hmm.
someplace where things are slightly different, like the cars are smaller, the roads are smaller. And it's
Hmm.
not because Brazil doesn't have enough land to build bigger roads. It's just that's
Hmm.
what Brazilians are used to. And so that kind of thing, to be able to look at a different culture and say it's not wrong, it's just different.
Different.
And I need to learn how it's different.
Hmm.
And I had studied abroad in Spain, so this wasn't my first time out of the country
Hmm.
in a different culture. But I asked myself a lot of times, okay, this is different. Why is it different? And a lot of times I found that it was better, than the United States, or different
Hmm.
food that we don't have in the United States. Like Brazil has the best steak. There's not
Hmm.
I would take Brazilian steak, churrasco,
Hmm.
over American steak any day.
Hmm.
So, those are things that I learned in Brazil my first time of, wow, this tastes fantastic. I had sujipe my first time in Brazil, which is a green avocado smoothie that in the United States,
Ah, yeah,
avocados, you eat them with salt, you eat them with
yeah.
chips.
We. Hmm.
They're saudável, right? Saudável, not
Hmm.
so having one with açúcar was completely different to me, but it was
Yeah.
great. I loved it.
Did you like it?
Oh, yeah. Every time I go back to Brazil, I'm like, we got to go to Sergipe.
Oh
And
my gosh.
I just
I
learned that there's another Sergipe, like another Sergipe located on the other side of town. I was like, but so when I go there, I might be like, no, I want to go to the
Yeah, it's
original
it's it's really
Sergipe.
famous. Vitamina da Sergipe,
Yeah.
Londrina. It's really famous. Yeah, pretty cool, pretty cool. Okay, good. One more.
Yep.
Um, okay, I need to read and translate. That's why I take a while. Okay, so I'm sorry.
Claro.
So, no, I'm gonna ask you in Portuguese this one. Como está sendo para você o processo de aprender inglês? Oh, português. Aprender português.
Português.
Inglês você já... You already know English, right?
So, what's the process of me, or how am I learning Portuguese?
Yes, how the process is like going. How is for you to
Yeah,
learn Portuguese? You find it
it.
hard, easy, or
I
funny, interesting,
yeah,
boring?
I find it hard, not boring. I find it hard. Now, I studied Spanish. I studied abroad in
Mhm,
Spain, so that was a good foundation for Portuguese.
mhm.
Um, but I'll often use Spanish words because I don't know the Portuguese words. So I speak a lot of Portugal, I think. Um, but I would say that the process is good. It just goes so much faster if I lived in Brazil, because
Sure.
it's difficult in the United States to find someone to speak Portuguese with.
Mhm,
And of course, my wife speaks Portuguese, but um, and my kids speak Portuguese, so I'll speak it with them, but not normally. And it's kind of hard. It's kind of weird to have a conversation in a language if you're trying to learn it with your
mhm.
wife.
Yeah.
Um, so the process for me has been really great to be able to learn from Carlos and Marcia.
Mhm,
Uh, weekly I'll jump on just like this, and we'll speak in Portuguese, and we'll go through a workbook, which is
mhm,
really, really helpful. So yeah, I find it very interesting. It's hard.
mhm.
Um, and I also think that just having conversations in another language is the best thing.
Yeah. And I think it's a lot easier for Brazilians to learn English than for Americans to learn Portuguese because we have, like, we listen to more songs in English than you listen in
Mm-hmm.
Portuguese. We watch more
Mm-hmm.
movies in series in English than you watch in Portuguese. So I think we are more exposed to American culture than you are exposed to Brazilian culture.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a little easier for Brazilians to learn Portuguese, to learn English from Brazil than it is for Americans
Mm-hmm.
to learn Portuguese from the US. I don't know if you mean
I
if you
agree.
understand.
I
Yeah,
agree.
that's it. Okay. What do you like? Yeah, what do you like more about Brazil? And what do you don't like about Brazil?
Ooh.
Yeah,
So
and you can say anything. Yeah, no.
So I already said, like, I like the people, and that is
Mm-hmm.
true. But also I love like visiting other new places in Brazil. We went to
Mm-hmm.
Rio one time, Rio. It was
Mm-hmm.
just beautiful, and we don't have beaches like that in the United States where you see montañas in the distance.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, the beaches in the United States are very flat.
Mm-hmm.
We also went to Cataratas, Iguaçu Falls,
Iguaçu Falls. Mm-hmm.
and that just the nature of Brazil is just beautiful. It's
Mm-hmm.
so fun to watch. What I don't like about Brazil is
Mm-hmm.
traveling to and from Brazil, because it's an 8-hour plane ride, and
Ah,
an 8-hour plane ride with a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old
that's hard.
is hard.
I got it. I got it. Cool. Okay,
Yeah,
about talking about your kids. One more
yeah.
question. The best thing about being a dad.
Ooh, the best thing about being a dad is your kids thinking that you are really, really, really special when maybe you're not.
Ah,
But they think the world of you. They think you are just very, very, just the most important thing. And it's so cool to have them think you're the most important thing, and you don't want to let them down from that, if that makes
cool.
sense.
Cool. And
So,
is there any frustration about being a dad that you can share, or if there is? Okay.
oh yeah, yeah. Just whenever our kids say no, and we have to discipline them, or we have to talk with them through it and tell them that we're the boss and that they can't disobey us,
Mm-hmm.
um, and also just trying to navigate family,
Mm-hmm.
schedules, and because it's no longer, as soon as you have a child, it's no longer your schedule, it's really their schedule. What time do they do this, what time do they need to do this, to
Mm-hmm.
which you have to start moving your schedule around there. So that's naturally going to mean that my wife Kendra and I go on less dates, and that means that
Mm-hmm.
we don't have the freedom. So if somebody just called us and says, hey, I got these great concert tickets tonight, we would have to figure out if somebody could watch our
Mm-hmm.
kids, and if somebody can't watch our kids, we wouldn't go.
Mm-hmm.
But my wife Kendra and I are going to the Billy Joel concert. Yeah, you could probably hear my kids in the background right
Yeah,
now.
that's life.
But
It's
but
amazing.
tonight, Kendra and I are going to go watch Billy Joel.
Billy Joel?
Billy Joel. I don't know, Carlos. Você
Whoa.
sabe Billy Joel?
I've heard of him. Yeah, I know.
I've heard of him.
Yeah, no, I know, I know.
You should listen to him. He's pretty good. So he's one of
Yeah,
Kendra's favorite musicians. So we're gonna go watch him tonight. So
amazing. Really
yeah, the
cool. And
kids
how do
will
you
stay with Chichu and Chichia.
Yeah, that's that I was gonna ask you because how do you do that? Because I again, stereotype or true, I don't know. Usually you don't live really near your family like we do here in Brazil.
Sure.
Because like I have my one of my brother-in-laws, I have cousins, I have my mom, my dad, I have my mother-in-law, so we have family around that we could count on to be with the kids. And how about you?
Growing up, I grew up around a lot of family,
Mm-hmm.
and now all my family still lives in Muncie, and I live
Mm-hmm.
in Indianapolis, which is about an hour away.
Mm-hmm.
But when we move to Michigan, we'll be about 4 hours away, so it will
Yeah.
be more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But generally speaking, I'd say it's probably more common here than in Brazil. It sounds like for people to leave because again, you might leave for college or education, but there's also
True.
maybe a little bit more of a culture of leaving the nest or going to try to figure life out by yourself,
Mm-hmm.
um, as opposed to family. And I don't know exactly if that's better or not. I think in some ways it
Mm-hmm.
is. But other ways, it's great to be so close to family, not just for them to watch your kids, but for them to support you emotionally
Sure.
and spiritually and all of that. So, there's certainly drawbacks too. But,
Awesome. Awesome. Man, last question.
all
I
right.
promise. Okay, last
You're good.
one.
You're good.
Uh what comes to your mind when you're listening to a Brazilian or I don't know, Spanish, it doesn't matter, of non-American person trying to speak English, like with a lot of mistakes and a lot of things that maybe you have a lot of difficulty to understand. Like, how do you feel about
Yeah.
that? Because like this question here is like because some people
Yeah.
they don't want to speak English to Americans, especially because they're like, ah, I don't know, like they will judge me for my poor English or etc. What do
Yeah.
you think when you have this?
I mean, personally, I don't mind it at all because
Hmm.
I'm trying to learn Portuguese, right? So I can empathize with
Hmm.
them, and I can.
Sure.
A lot of times, I'll be speaking with a Brazilian, and they'll apologize about how bad their English is, and I'm like, "Your English is way better than my Portuguese. Why are you apologizing?" Um, so I think, generally speaking, if you're trying to speak another language, whoever's on the receiving end is going to try to help out.
Hmm.
Um, and especially nowadays, the United States is such a diverse country that there's a lot of languages being spoken in the United States. However,
Hmm.
English is spoken everywhere in the United States.
Sure.
I would assume just like in Brazil, there's people who don't want to hear anything but English in the United
Sure.
States. And, there's a little bit of like, anti-immigrant sentiment in the United States that can come up sometimes with people.
Hmm.
So that would be like the only thing I could look at. But generally speaking, no, if someone is, from another country trying to speak English with me, I'm grateful because, I probably
Hmm.
can't speak their language. So it's such a
Sure.
great, it's a gift for them to do that because it allows us to communicate.
Hmm. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think nobody should apologize for
No,
language. Yeah,
no.
you're trying. It's not your language. Don't apologize. Just go
Yep.
and make mistakes. Be happy.
Yeah.
That's it. It's gonna be
They,
cool.
they, everybody knows it's your second language too, right? So if you make a
Yeah,
mistake, they'll give you the benefit of the doubt.
yeah, yeah. This is true. This is true. Man, what a nice conversation. I would like to stay here for like more 2 hours, definitely.
Oh,
But
this is
Kendra's gonna
great.
kill me, and your kids are gonna miss
We
you
got to
too.
get going to
So
Billy Joel, So
yeah, yeah, yes, sure. You gotta go. And man, but it's a pleasure to have you here, and it was so good. Like so, like you brought really interesting topics and talk like about really interesting things. It's amazing. I hope we can have another conversation
mhm.
soon.
Yep.
And who knows, even maybe here in Brazil, having a seu Bredes hot dog, and while we're talking, and then making a lot of mess talking too, because like we're gonna be cleaning ourselves and eating in
I love
front of the
that.
camera. That would be cool. And that's it, man. So with everybody, I'm asking you to do one thing, and I'm gonna ask you to do the same thing. Asking you to do the same thing is we're gonna end now with a message that, like, imagine that you have only like this message to talk to everybody, to tell everybody about this one thing that you consider that it's really important. It can be about parenting, it can be about God, it can be about, I don't know, anything that comes to your mind. So I just want you, and you are going to do that, and as soon as you finish, I'm not going to add anything, we're just saying goodbye and we're leaving. But because I am a good guy, I'm going to give you some time to think about it, and I'm going to tell everybody about Seu Bredes one more time, the best. So while I'm talking, you can think, okay? Uh, So, Seu Bredes, então, gente, patrocinador oficial, ele que possibilita, né, a gente conseguir ter essas conversas maravilhosas aqui. E, gente, olha lá, ó, horário do almoço, o pessoal tá aberto, pega agora aí, entra lá no Instagram, ó, clica nesse link que tá aqui, ó, gente. Opa, aqui em cima, clicou no link, ou pede pelo WhatsApp, ó, 3367-7425, tá? Você pode baixar o aplicativo para o iPhone ou para Android, você ganha um descontinho lá de 15% na primeira vez que vai utilizar. E, cara, tá aqui, já mostrei. Cardápio digital, tá aqui, perfeito, lanches maravilhosos, tá? Olha aqui, cara, tem com carne moída, tem com frango, e é isso, gente. Come lá, que o negócio é bom demais. Só pedir. Eu gosto mais do carne, do hot dog carne, cara, com bacon ainda, meu Deus do céu. Bacon é vida, bom demais. E é isso, gente. Então a gente está chegando ao fim, foi muito bom. Espero que você tenha conseguido aí praticar teu inglês, né? Um momento legal de ouvir um nativo falando, é sempre bom, né? E olha lá, ó, temos companhia. Olha lá, o Leo chegou para falar também com a
Sim.
gente. Hey, Leo,
Say oi. Say
tudo
hi.
bem?
Play with a broken phone right now. So,
Yeah.
desculpa.
No problem. Come on. So that's it, man. It's up to you now. Your message, and we're saying
Uh,
goodbye.
yeah, my message is love God and love others. That's my message.
That's it. Yeah. Thanks a lot, man.
Yep.
God bless you. Guys, God
Ciao.
bless you all. Ciao,
Ciao.
ciao. See you. Goodbye.